So I'm Sarah Duncan at the Network for College Success, and I'm so delighted to have you here. It's really so exciting to have so many people who care so much about high school graduation and college graduation in our city together this morning for breakfast, so we're so glad you're here. I want to quickly introduce our panels. I'm going to just do very quick introductions, and but if you want bios, they're in your folders. So if you want more information on any of us. So starting at the end is Juan Salgado from the Instituto del Progreso Latino, and he's the president and CEO. Next to him is Arthi Depilia, who is the vice president of strategic initiatives at National Louis University, and is continuing to come towards, I guess you're right, is Sue Ferrugia, who is the assistant vice provost for undergraduate affairs at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Elizabeth Kirby, who is the chief of school strategy and planning at the Chicago Public Schools. And next to me is Kevin Gallick, who's the principal at Washington High School. So we're going to get started, and what we're hoping to do in this panel today is these are folks here who are really in the trenches working on improving these metrics and having success doing it. So we're going to try to get into and learn about their work and what their recommendations are for us. So we're going to start with OnTrack. And we've known for a long time in this city, thanks to the consortium's good research, that the freshman on track is highly predictive of high school graduation, the way Arnie talked about. It's such an important metric. It's more important than to high school graduation than things people used to think were more important actually are. You know, a child's test scores, or what neighborhood they came from, or their gender, or their race. Freshman on track means so much. So I'm going to start with Liz. Can you tell us about how the district has been using 8th grade GPA and attendance data to help set middle school students up for high school success?
Well, one thing that has been new in the freshman on track work, and it has been the result of the research coming out of the consortium, is really using data around elementary school attendance and elementary school grades in order to support students before they come into high school. The district did some version of this as well, but didn't really have the research around it. Just had an instinct that maybe we should look at how kids are doing in elementary school prior to coming into high school. And so last year, all of the networks, principals in the high schools were trained on the at-risk and at-opportunity reports that were produced by the consortium, which gives principals an early look at the academic profile of students so that they know how to support them as they transition into high school. And it's been a nice nuance in the work, because when we look at our most recent freshman on track rates that I think were recently announced in the media, I think they're like 87.4 from last year. Ryan Crosby, who heads accountability, is in the room, so he can double check that for me. But what that means is that now we're at the, now we're starting to, schools have kind of figured out for the most part how to support the majority of students in getting on track, but now schools need to really develop a strategy for that last 13, 15% of students who are coming with high schools to high school typically with a lot of needs. We're talking about students who didn't really go to school in elementary school, so we'll probably have an even harder time consistently coming to school in high school. And we've actually found that, especially in some of our neighborhood high schools who really serve these students, that everyone wants to help get them on track. They have to just get them in the building consistently. So knowing that before a student comes in helps you better develop a strategy.
Thanks so much, Liz. I'm going to turn to Kevin, who's at Washington. We know that Washington has focused on monitoring student GPA and attendance data and has seen great results with that. What strategies have you implemented at Washington to identify students at risk of falling off track early in their 9th grade year and help put them back on a path towards high school graduation?
Thanks. So I'm excited. I feel like after finishing last year, it was the first year where we kind of got to the point where as schools at the point where you feel like really proud about the support you're putting in place. And like we're at like a foundation level, because last year we finished off at like 93% on track. Jessica Vargas, who's over here, one of my students, her class will graduate this year. They'll probably have like an 86% graduation rate. So what are the supports we put in place? I mean, one basic piece is just how we structure the school. You know, you have to have a priority on the freshman year. So that means we try to keep our freshmen in one part of the building. Even with all the challenges around funding, we try to make our freshman classes the smallest classes. And then we try to make the higher needs freshman classes, if you will, like a better teacher-to-student ratio. And then the teachers who teach at the freshman level, we try to make these teachers not necessarily like the best teachers in the school, but the teachers who are most appropriately to teach freshman students. You know, we have some teachers who they're much better off teaching an advanced science class than working with freshmen, and vice versa. So that structural piece is really critical. But the rest is just, I think, mostly boils down to a conversation around data. The data that Liz talked about is also available to us. So now, you know, by the time school starts up, we already have a watch list of kids who are coming in the building. My deans and other people have met with our feeder schools on the southeast side, so we have an idea of some of our really like challenging kids who are going to be coming in right away. But really, it boils down to having a conversation about the importance of grades, the importance of GPA, and structuring those conversations in the building. We really try, like, at a whole school level, and I know the district has a big, like, multi-tiered support focus. At a whole school level, we try to build a culture where, you know, you could ask a child, you know, what's your GPA, and they actually know. A kid doesn't come into freshman year in high school understanding the importance of a GPA, so we try to build that. And actually, right now, none of our freshmen have a GPA. They're not going to have a GPA until the 18th week of school. So we have to build this understanding. One way we do that within the first 5 weeks is our counselors will actually push into classes. And that'll just be like an introduction to who your counselors are and simple GPA lessons so we can begin to calculate GPA. And then, of course, we honor kids as they you know, hit key milestones like having a 3.0 or better or having straight A's. But really, it mostly boils down to many, many conversations with students. We do this in a really symbolic way. I think the 6th week of school we'll have a thing we call the Freshman Cafe, and actually anyone who's here is welcome to come in. I think it's on the second Thursday in October. So it's right after kids get their district progress report, which is simply their grades in all 7 classes, and it gives their attendance in those classes, and we can now calculate a GPA. And so students are going to come in, they're going to have a conversation with one of our teachers, one of our community members, maybe an external partner, and it's just going to be a conversation which is about their aspirations for the future, and then about, like, how are you currently performing in your classes? And that's a really symbolic way we do it. Those same conversations should be happening at the classroom level. They should be happening with coaches. But we also do intervention work. And so we also organize our teachers so all of our teachers are on a grade level team. And those grade level teams meet approximately, let's say, 7 weeks or 6 weeks. And that gives them the opportunity to do interventions outside of the classroom. And a really common one that we do at the freshman level is our freshman teachers organize something called Freshman Lunchbox Recovery. So it's a place right away where any freshman who's falling behind in any single one of their classes, it's a place where they can go to get support from a specific course team. And so my freshman team leader, Chanel Grayson, she organizes a calendar together with the freshman teachers so that, okay, you know you can get social studies support on this day, and it all happens during your lunch period, which is 3rd period. And we can actually pull the kids out of the lunchroom. And so being able to have a conversation with a family now is so much easier because I can explain the supports the school provides, and they can understand that it's their job to help push, like, the child into the freshman lunchbox. So when we can have the conversation with a family and say, okay, actually your child has really good teachers, this is what you can expect, here's what we need from you, I think our parents are a much greater resource as well.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's really comprehensive set of supports. I'm going to turn to Juan. we know that you're seeing more of the students on track to graduate in your schools. At the same time, you're seeing more students take advanced placement and dual credit courses. This mirrors a district-wide trend where not only are more students graduating, but their graduates have sort of a higher achievement levels and more rigorous coursework and higher test scores than in past years. But Juan, can you talk with us about how your schools are fostering both increased attainment, meaning graduation rates, and simultaneously stronger academic achievement?
So let me just start by saying a few things about the school itself. We've only had 3 graduating classes, so we're relatively new. We are a charter school, but our comparison schools are neighborhood schools. We have just as many ELL students or more than our neighborhood schools. We have just as many diverse learners as our neighborhood schools. And I think that's really important to say, right? Because today's debates oftentimes pits charters in a certain place, okay? Now, when we set out to do this school, our goal was 90% plus on the graduation rate, and we're not there. We've varied between 79, 82, 85, right? But schools are places of continuous learning and continuing improvement. And if you keep digging deeper and deeper, you're going to get there, right? So I'll give you a few data points that really speak to the fact that we're going to get to 90%. In the last 2 years, the dropout rate at our school was 1.6% year prior, 0.8% this past year. This past year, 6 students. That's what we lost, okay? And so if you keep drilling down, I think you can get there. Now, what are the things we've done since we've started to keep drilling down? From the very beginning, we have advisors for every class, right? But we've had to add more social workers in order to have a filter for those kids. Not only social workers, but a few years back, we started a partnership with the Adler School of Professional Psychologists. We have a psychologist on staff in the building every day, full time. Why? Because things happen to kids. All over our city, things are happening to kids. And they can't wait for their emotional distress or their depression to get help. They need to get it now, right? And so these are the things I believe, in addition to Freshmen on Track, that really matter, right, towards attainment, graduation. But what also really matters is that, you know, as kids are progressing, they have real opportunities to demonstrate that they are college ready. And we have so many students. And we had, by the way, when we first started out, we didn't have an AP program, right? It's new school. We didn't have a dual credit program. And so, you know, our first graduating class did not get the benefit of having that opportunity to really feel that college experience. We were fortunate. We went out and said, okay, let's hire master's degree teachers, right? We have one teacher who's a longtime high school teacher who is now inspired because he's doing college level coursework. He's a master's degree teacher in the subject area. He could teach at a community college. He's teaching at our place, right? We have another faculty, Stanford grad, a kid whose parent went through our ESL classes years ago, and his mom told him, you got to go teach there, right? And he's doing Spanish language learning because Spanish is an accent. And so many of our students are gaining that credit, that advanced credit. AP, so by the way, you know, we have a graduating class of 158 students this past year. 71 of them, all right, got a dual credit, at least one. Several of them got multiple. 93 of them got an AP course, passed it, 3 or above, right? And so this is saving them money. This is showing them that they're college ready, right? And this is creating a whole new conversation with the family, right, and with the students. And so, you know, we believe it's a mix of these kinds of things that lead to, because what you really have to do at the end of the day is, yeah, and I'll say this, yeah, kids are saying we aspire to a college degree. But deep down, any of you that went to college, I know it was for my case, wasn't there always a doubt as to whether you could really do it or not? At least it was for me, right? There was always a little doubt as to whether I could really get through it. Our kids have that same doubt. We have to transfer that doubt to real sense of confidence that they can do it.
Thank you so much. That's going to move us right into the next section. One, we're going to turn to another major milestone on the path to college graduation, which is college enrollment. Beyond helping students get past, you know, the sort of normal set of things you have to do, which is a lot of FAFSA, financial aid, and enrollment, we know that trying to get kids to aim at the right set of colleges that are appropriate for them is also important. We know from the consortium's research, just to echo Alex, that the college's institutional graduation rate is one of the strongest predictors of a student's success in college. This is something the research really shows clearly, is the power of the institution. Whereas we tend to think about talent and individuals, the research is really overwhelming in this regard. So I'm going to go back to Kevin actually and ask you, you have an outstanding post-secondary leadership team to help set students up for success in college. Can you talk about what strategies your post-sec leadership team is using to guide students towards enrolling in colleges that match their qualifications?
Sure. So the first step that we actually did was like shifting the responsibility of supporting kids' college access, going from like 5 counselors to a team. You know, it's an unfair expectation. I mean, we have 1,450 kids at my school. For a couple of counselors to think about this being their whole responsibility was too much. And I know when I arrived at the school that they were probably the only ones who knew. They were probably the only ones who knew what the college enrollment rate was at the time, and then they were quite frankly embarrassed because it was pretty weak. So right away, we formed a post-secondary leadership team. It's now in its 5th year of existence. Post-secondary leadership team is a group of, it's 4 counselors, it's 3 college coaches, one which is externally funded. It's 3 senior seminar teachers, and then a number of teachers at large, and then very importantly, each of the 3 administrators is a participant in the team. So it's a school-wide team, and the idea of that team is that they're actually going to shift the culture in the building and then provide direct supports to students. Initially, many of the supports that we were providing were at the senior level because we were like really behind the game. And you walk in, you realize that a whole bunch of seniors haven't been supported at all. I can say, thankfully, in the 5th year, now we're probably driving these supports more into the freshman and sophomore level. Very similar to like the OnTrack conversation, except now we're talking about college access. So this means helping students understand, like obviously building a culture in the building where every single student is going to realize that it's like their right to go to college, because it certainly wasn't the culture at the school. And so helping students and families to all realize that actually Washington High School is a place where we are a college prep school. I mean, that's the whole reason why we exist, right? So the whole school culture is a big part. And so that post-secondary team would lead that in many symbolic ways. People wearing college T-shirts on Fridays. Once a kid applies to 3 schools, they get a shirt that says college on it. All these like marketing schemes almost. But then a lot around just getting savvy with data and monitoring progress and having conversations with students. And so we have sophisticated data that we look at internally. Post-secondary team looks at that every 3 weeks. And then it almost ends up being the same type of thing that you could do at the freshman level, except it's like on-track work at the senior or junior level where we're looking at, okay, what's the student's GPA? What was their ACT score? Based on that, like what's their college access? And then are they applying to schools that are in their range or stretching their range? And then what are we doing to support kids around paying for college? Because anyone who wants to tell you differently, that is still the #1 hurdle. And helping our families understand the way everything works. And let me tell you a really sad story that just happened last week. I'm walking around the building, actually doing some little observations with my admin team, and we see some cute little girls who come back, and they clearly had graduated last year, and they're popping in to see their teachers, and we're thinking, oh, great. And so we talk to them, we're like, so what's going on? And they're like, where'd you guys go to school? Oh, I'm at UIC, I'm at St. Xavier. And then you can see their face drop. And it's really sad because like both of these girls got into both of these schools. But clearly our advising for them broke down because both of them didn't realize that there was like a $5,000 or $7,000 gap between their student loans and the cost to go to college. And had we had the right level of supports for these kids and their mothers and fathers, maybe they would have just enrolled in a city college. Because for these girls, that was actually what their families thought they could afford. So the level of counseling that kids need, I mean, when you talk about oh, $40,000 or $60,000, anyone can afford that. No. Families are not prepared for this. Families are not prepared for these plus loans of $7,000 a year. And so the counseling that students need, one, to go through the process of applying, go through the whole FAFSA process, but then actually understanding financial aid and what this means. Had we done a better job with these two girls last spring, maybe they would have realized that they were going to have to transfer into UIC. But instead, now they actually can't enroll right now because they were late in the process, and they'll enroll in January. And so it's a shame. But I'm saying this like after 5 years of really significant supports where we've dramatically improved college enrollment rates and where academic preparation is like so much stronger, we still have these failures. But anyone who thinks that this work is just about providing social supports for kids and the coaching and the counseling, I mean, that is enormous. I actually think it's more than 50%. But that's not enough. You have to have advanced academic courses. You have to have improvement. You know, a lot of people don't want to say it, but you have to have improvement in ACT scores and SAT scores. As long as these are a factor for scholarships, then kids have to have them. And this is why I'm so excited about my student who's here, Jessica. This is because her class this year, the academic preparation of her class is like twice what it was last year's. And we've had dramatic improvement each year. I kind of feel like we've been socially supporting kids who are relatively prepared in the same academic way until now Jessica's class, because the average GPA in Jessica's class is so much higher. Their ACT score is so much higher than the year before. So we're working on academic qualifications, and then we're trying to socially support the kids so that when they do get to college, they can actually move forward. So it's very complex. The more we work on it, the more we realize that we're totally inadequate.
I appreciate what you mean by that, but the improvements have been amazing, amazing. I'm going to turn to Sue and talk about UIC's partners with CPS to use data to identify schools with large numbers of highly qualified students, meaning a 3.0 GPA and a 22 on the ACT, who are not enrolling in college, and to provide additional outreach to those schools. Can you talk a bit about how UIC and CPS are partnering and some of the outcomes that you've seen as part of that process?
Sure. I first wanted to, before I got into that, just make a brief comment about the tremendous work that everybody here has been doing about better preparing students for college. And we at UIC we have seen this in action. We just got the final numbers for our 2016 cohort. We have over 1,200 CPS students in our entering freshman class. It's 37% of our entering class. It's really amazing. And they're here because they're ready to go to college. And they're here because of all the amazing work that's been done to help prepare them to get to us. So talking about the partnerships that we've been working on, this will be a bit of a common theme today. Tom Moss, my excellent colleague, and I were at a meeting about 2 years ago that Arthi was talking at, and she mentioned the fact that there was this large number of college-ready, non-attending students. And we went back to UIC and we had conversations. We talked to then Vice Provost Manny Pollack about, okay, what can we do to help solve this? We know there's a tremendous amount of work going on. There are all these amazing nonprofits, but there still seems to be this big gap. And we said, well, we, in a lot of ways, are poised to help crack this issue because we are here, we're in the city, we we are developing relationships with a lot of people. That we think that we can potentially do something about this. So we called up and we talked to our good friend Dakota and said, okay, we are engaging in the Higher Ed Compact. We think this is something that we want to do. And we know we're interested in identifying some high schools that seem to have large numbers of these students, but also don't have college access partners already. It doesn't make sense to go into a school that's really well resourced with other college access partners. And so Dakota said, great, how many schools do you want? And he's like, we've got them. And we said, we'll take 2 to start with. And he came in with a list, and we talked through, and we honed in on 2 high schools, and he helped facilitate meetings with the school principals. Tom and I and some of our colleagues went and met with the principals. And we talked through kind of what we can do, what are the needs of the schools, and starting in January this year, so this is all brand new, the partnerships were launched, and we have dedicated staff from an office in Tom's portfolio, the Office of First Year Initiatives, that goes and works with students that are identified by the high schools as being college ready. So we were very intentional about the students. We don't want to start working with students that kind of don't have access into UIC or a school like UIC. We thought that would be a bit unkind. But we started working with students on everything to be college ready, to do the things that they needed to do. These were not just for UIC bound students. So if they ended up going to DePaul, if they ended up going to Northern, we were pleased they were going somewhere. This is really about a student success initiative to get students to college who normally wouldn't go, but were ready to go. And so we started working with them. Very, very early indicators have been showing that there has been success of this. We've seen increases in the number of applications. Again, this is January, and our cutoff date was in January. But we saw increases in the number of applications, increases in the number of admissions from these schools. It's been so successful that we have rolled it out to an additional charter school in the city, a parochial school in the city, and then 2 very low resource suburban high schools. So there's kind of different models. Some schools need a bit more support than others. Some schools are getting weekly visits, some are getting monthly visits. And it's really tailored around what are the needs of the schools, what are the needs of the students, and how we think about getting those students into college. The students who do come to UIC, they will have an established relationship with we're calling our internal transition coaches. But they'll work with them, and they've been working with them over the summer. They'll continue to work with them while they're here at UIC. So we're really excited. We have some early evidence that this is working, but the hard data we'll see in about a year when we get our retention data.
Thanks so much, Sue. Arthi, National Louis University has implemented a professional pathways program to set students up for success who might not otherwise have access to it. Can you talk about how your program helps target students and navigate the barriers to college graduation?
Sure, Sarah. So I'll start by saying that at National Louis, our core belief is that every single student, if given the right access and the right resources, can achieve success. And yet, I think we've seen in the data today, and we all know that every single year there are thousands of Chicago high school graduates who are left behind, who aren't achieving their college success goals because they aren't getting the right access and the right support. So that's who we're targeting. So our goal at National Louis in undergraduate education is one thing, and that's to close the achievement gap in bachelor's degree attainment. So we're very aligned with the making Chicago the college attainment city. And so we want to get thousands more students, particularly first generation, low income, underrepresented minority students through college. And so what we specifically did last year, we launched the new Harrison Professional Pathways program, which is a bachelor's degree program that is specifically designed to address the many reasons that we know students tend to not enroll in or complete college. And we're trying to address both the enrollment issues as well as the persistence and success issues. So focusing first on the enrollment issues, there are really 2 challenges that we're addressing. One is affordability, as we all know. As Kevin said, the #1 reason that students do not enroll in college is the financial barriers. And over 90% or nearly 90% of CPS students are low income, and we've all heard about the rising costs of college. I just read last week that college costs have risen 63% in the past decade, right? And so we've designed a bachelor's degree program that tries to eliminate the cost barrier. So we've priced our program at $10,000 per year, all in, which we believe is the most affordable bachelor's degree in Illinois. And it's also priced strategically such that if you are in the lowest income bracket and qualify for full Pell and MAP grants, assuming MAP comes through, you actually, if you get full Pell and MAP funding, your degree can actually be free. And that was actually the case for about 70% of our first class of students this past year. So we really are eliminating the cost barrier for a large percentage of our students. Thank you. And the second challenge is this the accessibility issue. So making a bachelor's degree a real option for a much broader range of students. So we learned from the To&Through data and from our CPS partner that there is a lack of strong college options for students who are below a 3.0 GPA, right? So the graduation rates of the colleges that admit those students tend to not be very high. And so what we've done is we've set our admissions criteria at a 2.0 GPA or above, and that's it. With the thinking being, one, those students with a 2.0 have shown at least some ability and willingness to put in the work in school to be successful. And two, that 2 to 3.0 GPA range is that range that's most underserved at the higher education level. So we feel that's where we can impact the achievement gap the most. So with that being said, I'll also note that we do serve higher achieving students, but we really wanted to target this group. And I'll also note that we have no ACT or SAT admissions requirements, again, because there's so much research saying it's not predictive of college success. So it is just that 2.0 GPA requirement. And we're really encouraged. We just had our first class of freshmen last year, 80 students, and this year we launched our second year just last week, our second class of freshmen, and we started with over 330 students. So we're just seeing huge demand for the program and expect to continue to grow.
Thanks so much, Archie. That's huge. We're going to go to the next milestone, which is college persistence and graduation. Helping students enroll in colleges where they have the strongest possible chances of success is one critical part of the work. Helping students actually persist and graduate is another hugely important piece. IDPL's advisors are working with the same cohort of students from their freshman year of high school through their freshman year of college. How has that helped students not only stay on track in high school and graduate, but also persist in college?
Yeah, so when we designed the school, we really thought about the relationships. And the relationships are just so important. Not just relationships with the students, but relationships with the families. And we all know that decision-making for college is really a family decision in many ways, right? All kinds of stakeholders are involved in that. That's even more the case when your resources are limited, right? And when it's not a family decision, it's all on the student themselves, right? And so if you know these things, then relationships have to be at the center. So imagine in our schools, our freshmen get to know their advisor in the 8th grade going into high school. We have a 2-week summer bridge where we're focused on a college-going culture. That same advisor, and we have roughly a starting class of 180 to 200 students on an annual basis, right? So that advisor stays 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, right? So in that 4-year journey, they're really going to get to know these students. They're also going to connect them to experiential opportunities, to internships, to those kinds of value-added things that prepare them also to be successful in college, to prepare them to have some confidence as they enter colleges. And they're going to get to know the families, right? It's hard not to. It's just built into 4 years of being around these kids, dealing with situations and that kind of thing. And so they'll stick with the students through the first year, and if I had enough resources, I would do 2 years, right? But right now, they'll stick with the students through the first year of college to make sure that those connections are made. And what are the kinds of things we're trying to do? We're trying to make sure that the students access the support systems at the universities that they're at, right? Because oftentimes those support systems exist, and so the advisor's literally going. We got 1 student at Purdue, 1 student at Iowa, 5 students at University of Champaign. We got to go visit them and make sure that they get a buddy, a mentor, they're in the tutoring place, they're doing all the things that they need to get the extra help because they're going to need it. I needed it, right? we know they need it. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. Jury's still out, right? I mean, we're relatively new, right? Data's just coming in. But I know one thing for sure is we're going to keep tweaking this. You know, one of the positive things is we had this work really well in the first round, right? The advisor went 5 years, and then he cycled back in. So he's now with our new freshmen, right? And so it also gives those graduates an opportunity to come back to the person they really got to know, that connector for them in the school. And then we had one instance where it didn't go well, the second year, right? Where the advisor did the 5 years and gone, right? And you know, those students are a little bit in limbo. So we're learning how to you know, manage that as well. But
Thank
those
you
are
so
efforts.
much. Yeah, it's going to make a big difference, I think. Sue, UIC has been partnering with some nonprofit groups to monitor students' grades and financial aid status. How is having the access to that data on students' grades and financial aid status translate into supports and interventions that help students persist through college?
Sure. So I always feel like I need to tell the story. A couple years back, a colleague and I were at a Thrive meeting, and we were sitting there, and it was kind of early days, and it was our first Thrive meeting that we had attended. And we were talking to some people, and we realized, oh, you're providing some support to some of our students, and you're providing this support sometimes on our campus, in our student center. And so we had some follow-up conversations with some organizations. We continued to have some conversations with some charter schools who have alumni coordinators. And a big part of those conversations were, okay, you guys are doing great work with our students. What can we do to support the work that you're doing? And we were fortunate enough a couple years back to get a grant from the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities to do some student success work on our campus. And we used part of that funding to hire Dr. Jason Coupe, who was fantastic. He has a business background and was very different than the rest of us and had a very kind of different mindset in thinking about things. And he took those early conversations. He looked at the Success Boston initiative. He looked at some best practice. He looked at research, and he said, and he took that and kind of put it all together and came up with this coordination initiative that we've been working on formally for the last 16 months or so. And the idea is really to work with nonprofits and charter schools and to provide them the support that they need to do the great work that they have, you know, to optimize the work that they've been doing. So we identified 4 partners to be part of what we're calling the pilot as part of our evaluation, although there's other partners who are working with UIC, and that list does continue to grow. And we're providing supports in terms of things, you know, again, depending what the organization needs. So we're giving space to some of them in a very, you know, space-limited university. We have designated space for their coaches and their alumni coordinators to come and meet with students on our campus. What Sarah had just mentioned was, some ways, the newest piece of this is that we received an additional smaller grant from APLU to build a data system in which students can go in, they can sign a FERPA release electronically, and then they can give access to their coaches with organizations that we have assigned MOU with. As you can imagine, student data is very tricky. But they can go in, they can provide release, and then the idea is that the coaches and alumni coordinators can go in, they can log into the system, and they can see a lot of the information that the university staff can see. So they can see midterm grades, they can see a financial aid hold if there's one, they can see credits, they can see classes that the students are enrolled in, and so forth. So it's new. This was just released this past year, so we're really hoping to ramp up the utilization of this system this year. But really the idea is that there are a lot of organizations doing this really tremendous work, and we want to do whatever we can to support them. And for them to do their best work, they need that very timely information about students, and when something, you know, if a student starts to, dare I say, get off track a little bit, but you know, how they can intervene early. And you know, as Kevin mentioned, that for students in college, You know, academics are a big thing, but finances are a big issue as well. And so if we can provide information to coaches, if they know that they have, if they know that their students have a tuition balance, for instance, that potentially a couple months down the road is going to prevent them from registering for their second semester of classes. If they know early, they can we can work with them to intervene early. And we have a dedicated staff member who is sitting in an office and is there available pretty much whenever they need it to serve as that liaison to our campus. We are a large, almost 18,000 undergraduate students. We are a decentralized campus, and so it's, we are finding that it's been very helpful to have one person who is available, that if they have a question on how to better support their student, that they will be there to answer any questions that they have. So again, it's very early stages. This has only been the first year. We're in the process now of doing the evaluation to see how effective it was. We are excited about launching in full force the data system this year so that our partners can have the most accurate, up-to-date information on our students.
Thanks so much, Sue. Liz, we know that success in college begins in high school, or maybe preschool, but certainly in high school. Can you discuss the importance of a district-wide college-going culture? Kevin is describing a school college-going culture for setting students up for persistence and graduation from college.
Yeah, I think that to kind of go back to what Arnie talked about earlier, it was really groundbreaking in the district when on the SQRP, which is the accountability measure for schools. College enrollment was a measure that, that schools were held accountable to, in addition to early college credit attainment. That had not always been the case, and it took a while to get traction in that area. And you only really started to see things move when the accountability measure came. The same is true for OnTrack. So OnTrack was something that some schools were doing and some people were starting to pay attention to. I see Joyce Brown, who I used to work with at Kenwood, who is a counselor who has been talking about OnTrack for over 30 years. But when the measure came on the school's report card, people started to, kind of moved. Even if minds weren't moved, bodies started moving. And sometimes that's what it takes. And then people see the success, and then they start to really incorporate it into their practices. So that from the district, just the accountability is one piece. Secondly, in the Office of College and Career Success, a district-wide going culture means there is a commitment to having specialists that go out into the schools and support principals and support counselors around the work, around working with the post-secondary leadership teams, around strategies to assist students in making good fiscal decisions. It also means having, using research-based practices in the training of counselors to ensure that all schools have a viable counseling plan with goals around this work. So the beauty in CPS is now almost any high school you go into is going to have college banners hanging up. And that was not the case even 5 or 6 years. But now the work has to be much deeper and more strategic and involve a variety of partners throughout the district to ensure that students have access, students have information, and support in order to both enroll and complete high school. The other piece, though, of a district college-going culture is also the work around increasing the rigor in the classrooms, such that students are prepared. So, for example, the work around expanding IB programs contributes directly to that, comes out of the research from the consortium around IB students and their successes in college. Increasing the number of students who are in high school that are earning college credits while in high school. So the mayor has set a goal around that, really believes in ensuring that as many students as possible have a college experience while they're in high school, because we know that contributes to completing college. So the college-going culture has definitely moved beyond T-shirts into the structures that really matter for schools. Still a lot of work to do, still a lot of ways to go, but especially in a challenging funding climate. But I think we are poised to contribute to making this city a city of college attainment as well.
Thanks so much, Liz. This is the last question, and it's going to Arthi. In addition to encouraging more at-risk students to enroll, Pathways program is structured to help students persist in college as well. Can you describe a little bit more about some of the supports that are in place for students once to keep them on track for college graduation?
Sure. There are several key aspects to the program design that we believe help students persist and graduate. The first is around flexibility and convenience and scheduling, right? So we know that a lot of students tend to not enroll in or complete college because they have other personal responsibilities, whether they have to work 20 hours a week, they have childcare, they have to take care of an elderly parent or something like that. And so we've designed a program that is blended. So students only have to come to campus 2 days a week for face-to-face coursework, and the rest of the work is online. So what that does is it gives students the flexibility to do a lot of the work on their own schedule so they can also take care of their other responsibilities. The second piece is that given our broad access admissions criteria, we know that many of our students are showing up unprepared. They're showing up below college ready. So our average GPA is 2.5. Our average ACT for the students we do know it for is 16. And so without added support, they're not going to make it through that first year. And so we've designed a very personalized instructional model. So one, we have very small class sizes. Two, we're using an adaptive online instructional platform, so it really meets students where they are. And then the in-class time is also a flipped model, so it's very interactive. There's no large lecture halls. It's just it's very hands-on interactive learning, and professors really have the opportunity to get to know their students and individualize support. I'll also mention that because many of our students are first-generation college goers, they don't necessarily have somebody at home guiding them on what does it take to be successful in college. And so we've created a role that some other colleges have done as well called the Student Success Coach role. And this person is, I think of them, overall as sort of the OnTrack coach for the student, but they provide academic, personal, career support, whether it's connecting a student to a tutor, whether it's, just helping them figure out how to manage their schedule better, manage their time, whether it's connecting them to a homeless shelter. It could be a variety of things, but at the end of the day, their job is to be data-driven, look at how students are doing weekly, and make sure students stay on track to graduate. We also have seen this trend in colleges across the country of many students sort of taking courses that don't stack towards a degree, racking up a lot of debt, and then dropping out of college. And so what we've done is we've sort of eliminated the guesswork in course taking and course selection, and that we've predefined the first 2 years of college. So with largely gen eds these are the courses you're going to take. And after that, students really branch off into any of the bachelor's degrees that we offer. So again, there's no risk of taking courses that don't stack towards any kind of credential. And then the last thing I'll mention.
I'm a mess.
Let's talk afterward. Recruit more students. And the last thing I'll just highlight is the use of data. So we are a very, very data-driven program in that our professors and success coaches meet weekly. So they're organized. Our students are now organized in cohorts of 100 students. And there's a group of professors and a coach assigned to each cohort of students, and they meet weekly to go through student-level data, student by student, and they'll plan interventions around anyone who seems to be a red flag. So it's very much like what you see in high schools with the OnTrack team meetings. So with that said, we're very optimistic about our results so far. With our first class of 80 students, we're seeing 70% retention from year 1 to year 2, which is about on average, it's on par with the CPS average for all college enrollees, but it far exceeds the CPS persistence rate for students of our academic profile. It's more around 55% for that academic profile. So we're optimistic from the numbers, but we also hear from students, things like, I wouldn't still be in college if I didn't have this relationship with this professor, or if my coach didn't help me out with this particular issue. They really talk about the kind of the personal relationships and the support they're getting as being critical to their still being here.
Thank you so much. I think please join me in thanking this wonderful panel.